Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal, and this week we're going back to ICICI Securities. In fact, there is an explosive new development. The Securities and Exchange Board of India, which is India's market regulator, is investigating a whistleblower allegation of misconduct in securing a fairness opinion about the valuation of ICICI Securities. As you know, ICICI Securities has been delisted and is now part of ICICI Bank. And this issue is highly controversial. Matter has gone to court. 100 investors have got together in an unusual class action suit. And now, if their basic problem was the valuation. They felt that the valuation is very low. They would have preferred ICICI Securities to remain a separate company. And investors, as well as some mutual funds, have been asking that this whole delisting and merger be declared null and void. In the middle of this comes this new charge that valuation was managed and manipulated by ICICI Bank. And given the people involved, it's a serious allegation because look at who's on the other side. The other side is Bank of America Securities India Limited, which is the investment banker. So the whistleblower, who calls himself a market participant, alleges that Bank of America Securities was involved in ethical violations to help ICICI Bank secure a fairness opinion on the merger valuation for ICICI Securities. Now, look at what happens over here. Key charges, he's written this letter to a dozen SEBI officials, and this is over a month ago. We've got it only recently. The key charges he has made in the letter are these: that Bank of America Securities, its managing director and co-head of investment banking, received a mandate from ICICI Bank to provide a fairness opinion. They wanted it in 4 or 5 working days, which is usually impossible because it requires a lot of work on the ratios. But bad enough that it comes from ICICI Bank, it was actually supposed to be obtained by ICICI Securities. So on the day that the board approved the merger, which was 29 June 2024, on that very day, within 4 days of the mandate, this letter, fairness opinion, had been issued. As the whistleblower says, too short a time to evaluate financials and approve swap ratios. Now, ICICI Bank dictated the payment to BofA Securities, Bank of America Securities. ICICI Securities seems to be a dummy over here. ICICI Bank gives the mandate, tells ICICI Securities, now issue the letter saying that you want this fairness valuation. Bank of America gives the valuation, ICICI Securities makes the payment. Even the fee is decided by ICICI Bank and paid by ICICI Securities. I mean, how incestuous can this be? And this is supposed to be a fair public thing. He told SEBI that all these allegations can be established through innumerable emails, Zoom calls, and meetings between senior people of Bank of America Securities, the top brass, including the India CEO of Bank of America and ICICI Bank's team handling this merger. Bank of America Securities does have checks and balances to ensure that the fairness opinion is not vitiated. It goes before a fairness opinion review committee. But in this case, this whistleblower, who calls himself Satyaprakash R, says that they were not informed about how ICICI Bank was pulling the strings, and both securities, ICICI Securities and Bank of America Securities, were like puppets on a string. But all the details that he's provided from this Proton mail are credible enough for SEBI to have begun an investigation. Moneylife wrote to Bank of America Securities, a bunch of compliance officers, including the global team. We wrote to ICICI Bank CEO and MD for a response. I wrote to them on 29th November, wrote a follow-up. We haven't heard anything from them. If they do, we'll update it in the comments over here. Now, if SEBI is able to confirm all these allegations, it's a good chance that the delisting of ICICI Securities could, or rather has to, unravel. At the very least, the bank will need to pay a fair price to investors for ICICI Securities. What is worse, if all this is proven, paints a rather sorry picture of how ICICI Bank behaves, how it appears to have flouted ethical and fiduciary responsibilities, and how Bank of America Securities and a whole bunch of others, because they're not alone, have completely abandoned their fiduciary responsibilities and all the checks and balances in pushing this delisting at any cost. There is a background to this. It's not that SEBI is unaware that things are not hunky-dory. SEBI has already issued an administrative warning to ICICI Bank on 6 June 2024, saying that the manner in which its relationship managers tried to persuade investors of ICICI Securities to opt for the merger was inappropriate. They had a list. Information should not even have been available to them. They misused their role as relationship manager by giving wrong advice or bad advice, because the valuation, as experts allege, is low. Other sources tell me all this was done through a clandestine nationwide outreach program, which ICICI Bank had codenamed Project Irongate. ICICI Securities has been penalized in a way. It has disclosed that it entered into a settlement deal with SEBI by paying 69.82 lakhs to resolve issues related to merchant banking activities and its due diligence process. The conflict of interest and breach of fiduciary responsibility is already established in the past. Remember, ICICI Securities was headed for a long time by Madhvi Puri Buch, who's now SEBI chairperson. There are also allegations about ESOPs, but this one we are not going to get into. There are more serious allegations that have come up, and the question is, will SEBI come to the right conclusions? Happily, it has already started the investigation. Now, let's tell you in a nutshell what the whistleblower has said all over again. He says, BofA Securities issued a fairness opinion on 29 July, which was the very date that ICICI Bank board approved the mandate. Super quick. Mandate has been given 5 days ago. All the negotiations done by the bank on behalf of ICICI Securities, including the payment. Specifically, he says, Anindya Banerjee, Group CFO of ICICI Bank, communicated the mandate to Devashish Purohit, who's the MD and co-head of investment banking, decided the fees to be paid, and ICICI Securities just signed the engagement letter and accepted the final opinion. The opinion not only was issued in 4 or 5 working days, but during this time, there were several Zoom and WebEx meetings and in-person meetings between Anindya Banerjee and Devashish Purohit and other senior officials. These are logged and registered as permanent records in the IT systems of Bank of America Securities. So easy for SEBI to cross-check, provided it wants to do it. The whistleblower also says, in contrast to the flurry of interactions here between the bank and Bank of America Securities, ICICI Securities, the one who's signing the deal, who's signing for the fairness opinion, paying for it, was hardly in the picture except until the last 3 days. Mr. Purohit not only gave this opinion super fast, took instructions apparently from ICICI Bank, but he also asked his team to discuss details of the valuation, assumptions, and numerical basis with leading audit firms and valuers. He has specifically named PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, who were also asked to provide a fairness opinion, and he has named JM Financial and Noah Dhruva as being part of the many calls that happen. Obviously, these calls are logged in, so it should be established. Although these are the logged in calls, he says there were a number of calls that happened on personal devices, which could have been erased before SEBI investigation, but stuff that is on the IT systems of the bank and Bank of America Securities cannot be erased. The good news is SEBI is pursuing this investigation. As many of you know, under the leadership of Manu Rishi Gupta, who's a fund manager, they had filed a unique class action suit. That means 100 people at least have been involved in it. And there is another suit filed by Quantum Mutual Fund. Their key allegation, and we have discussed this before, written about it at Moneylife, is the valuation is very low. As things stand, the merger is complete, even while the litigation continues, but newer and newer issues are coming up. ICICI Bank has claimed that 83.8% of public institutional shareholders and 32% of non-institutional shareholders voted in favor of ICICI Securities delisting. But now that the fairness opinion has opened a new can of worms. In my view, it also calls into question the quick green lighting of the move on merger and delisting by proxy advisors as well. It would appear that nobody is on the side of minority investors, barring the rare fund manager like Mr. Gupta and the rare mutual fund. Remember, a lot of mutual funds also were happy to accept it. Doesn't matter that it's not fair for their investors. Are they doing the job of protecting investors? You tell me. And if you feel angry about it, one needs to put enough pressure to ensure SEBI comes to the logical conclusion and does something to ensure that these investors who are spending a lot of money needlessly fighting a battle with SEBI on the other side defending get a fair deal. If you agree, please subscribe and share this with others. Thank you.